This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by Rock School.
It's really easy to see this teen come in and slump on your bench and say, like, I didn't practice. And we feel like, I'm losing them. And right away, our doubts creep in. And suddenly we are scrambling. We are pulling out a piece that we hope will click. We're patching together a lesson on the fly. We're letting them have all of the say in what they bring in. And then structure starts to slip. And instead of leading the lesson, we end up reacting to it. And teens being who they are, they can completely derail your lesson plans.
You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. It's Tim Topham here, and welcome back to the Topcast. It's great to be with you again today. Do you sometimes struggle to keep your teen students thriving and motivated to play? Do you find them sort of drifting off around the start of high school? Maybe they'll give it a shot for a little while and then, no, we're not coming back. Even though you've been perhaps working with them for years and years, maybe 5 years or more, and they just love music as well. If so, look, you're not alone. We all face this from time to time, and today we're going to give you some concrete ideas about how to avoid this situation as much as possible as you can this year. In fact, I was scrolling through Facebook the other day, and one particular question came up which spoke directly to this challenge. I wonder, do you feel a bit like this sometimes? The poster wrote, I've lost 8 teen students over the past calendar year, not due to graduation, no time to practice, and too much homework, other activities filling up their schedule, etc. Most had been with me for 5 to 10 years and were doing really well. I've been a piano teacher for a long time, and it feels like 80 to 90% of students now quit during high school, often right after school starts or during freshman year, because they didn't realise how tough it would be to balance everything. I know teens are so overloaded these days. It still makes me sad. I love teaching teens. Who else can relate? Any strategies for keeping them enrolled? Well, today we're going to be answering that very question. And yes, firstly, hands up, who's felt this before? I think pretty much all of us have if we've taught a teenager at some stage. So today we're going to be focusing on motivating our teen students, and I can't think of a better guest than the amazing Andrea Dow, founder of Teach Piano Today and author of Wonder Keys, who you'll remember from episode 407. She was on to talk about the power of storytelling in music. Today's episode is actually a replay of this month's member-exclusive Spotlight session, which was titled From Meh to Motivation, 5 Tips for Teaching Teens. We hold these Spotlight sessions each month for our Top Music Pro members who get the chance to interact with our guests and get all their questions answered. And we've already hosted experts like Sarah Campbell, who talked about social media marketing, Nicola Canton, who talked about practice, and coming up, we've got Tara Wright, who's talking about AI, Noreen Wenjen, who's the author of the 2-Year Waitlist, and the amazing Penelope Roskell, talking about technique in December. So if you'd like to be a part of these future sessions, like the one you'll be hearing today, then go grab a membership at topmusicpro.com. All right, let's meet our guest for today, Andrea Dow. Andrea, together with her husband Trevor, are the composers, authors, and educators behind teachpianotoday.com and Wonder Keys. Their collaborative work has transformed piano education, providing teachers with imaginative resources that engage students of all ages. From quirky piano books to game-based learning materials, Andrea and Trevor's creations inspire piano teachers worldwide to bring creativity and joy to their lessons. Over the years, they've published 207 piano books, each designed to motivate students and make learning fun. Andrea and Trevor live on Vancouver Island off the west coast of British Columbia, Canada. When not composing or creating, Andrea and Trevor balance family life with 2 teenage daughters and spend most of their time at the hockey rink or the track. Okay, let me hand over to Andrea for today's episode. Andrea, welcome. So great to see you again.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. I see some familiar names from our Facebook group, and I'm really happy to be here today.
So I might let you take over, and I've just asked Andrea to give a quick introduction to herself, although I really don't think she probably needs a huge amount of introduction. And then she'll be able to kick off with some information for us all about this challenging teen challenge for us.
Sure. So I'll just start by screen sharing. I'm a visual person, so I just have a little screen share to keep me on track, or I'll keep going on one topic for too long. I just want to thank you for having me here today, Tim. It's always really nice to connect with like-minded piano teachers. I am so glad that you are all here today to talk about your teens. I titled this little mini session From Meh to Motivation. And if you have ever had a teen walk into a lesson with crossed arms and their headphones still over their head, you know exactly what I mean when I talk about the challenge of teaching a teen who's feeling a little meh about the piano. So today we're going to explore some practical ways, hopefully, to move those moments into motivation so your teens not only stay at the piano, but actually thrive there. So we're going to talk about these things on my table of contents here. I am guessing if you are here, you too have felt the challenge part of teaching teens. We know they are at a crossroads stage. As that commenter said, they are juggling sports and homework and part-time jobs, busy social lives. Their interests can change by the week. Their emotions can be all over the place. And so sometimes piano can feel like just another thing that's fighting for their attention. And it's easy to just walk away from that. But the good news is, with the right strategies, teens can actually become some of your most rewarding students that you'll ever teach. So if you are right now worried about a particular student that you feel is slipping away, hopefully it's not too late. You're here, and with a few shifts, you can re-engage them and keep them at the piano. So that's what we're going to be diving in today. Just as a quick intro, who I am and why I care. I am Andrea Dow, as you know. I am the co-creator of Teach Piano Today and Wonder Keys. For the past 15 years, my husband Trevor and I have been creating resources for piano teachers all over the world. I have spent a lot of hours on the piano bench with teens. I have two teenagers myself, a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, two daughters. And so I know how tricky this age can be. But I've also seen how with the right approach, your teens can bring a lot of energy and emotion and honesty to their music. And when they're engaged, they can absolutely soar. And that's why this matters so much to me. I don't want any teacher out there to be feeling like they're losing their teens to boredom or to YouTube or to burnout. I want you to feel confident when your teens walk through your studio door. And I want your teens to feel like piano is the best part of their week. As Tim touched on, our reality now is we're not actually just competing with busy schedules anymore. It used to just be overscheduled kids, and we would find strategies to deal with that. Now we are dealing with competing with technology. Our teens live in a world of constant dopamine hits, TikTok scrolls, YouTube shorts, Instagram reels. Everything that they want is instant at their fingertips, entertaining, and tailored just for them. And so when you compare that to practicing scales or polishing phrasing, it can feel kind of meh. And so that's why we are risking losing them, not because they don't love music. We all see them with their headphones on all the time. They love music. It's just because if piano lessons are presented the wrong way, it is having a hard time competing with that pull of instant tech gratification. But this is where we as teachers have an edge, and this is what we'll talk about in the next slide. I really believe that music still does what technology can't. It gives teens a safe place to process their emotions that they're having. It helps them form an identity at a time when they're asking, who am I? It teaches patience and resilience in a world that is now full of shortcuts. And it offers human connection, that face-to-face kind that they crave, even if they don't always admit it. It really can give something that technology never will. It gives them like depth and meaning and ownership of a skill that can last a lifetime. And I think that we know this. That's why we're all here. This is why we're fighting to keep them engaged. Because when teens discover that music can be theirs, it really carries them through high school stress and identity shifts and into adulthood as confident, expressive people. So the key thing of my overreaching theme for this little mini series is finding your own confidence in teaching teens. All of what I'll cover today kind of centers around this because teen motivation rises and falls based on how relevant their lessons feel. And when it comes down to it, our confidence as teachers will set that tone. Confidence isn't about having every answer. It's about walking into every lesson with a plan, with one piece that will click, one activity that connects to a skill, and very importantly, a sense of where this lesson will lead to the next. And with this approach, teens can then bring energy and emotion and honesty to the music. And when they're engaged, they can really be very successful. We have all been there. I think we've all been there recently, probably. It's really easy to see this teen come in and slump on your bench and say, like, I didn't practice. And we feel like, I'm losing them. And right away, our doubts creep in. And suddenly we are scrambling. We are pulling out a piece that we hope will click. We're patching together a lesson on the fly. We're letting them have all of the say in what they bring in. And then structure starts to slip. And instead of leading the lesson, we end up reacting to it. And teens being who they are, they can completely derail your lesson plans. They can come in with a massive mood shift. They can come in having had a packed schedule and not even opening their books all week. They can come in and just announce, I hate this piece. And all of a sudden, your lesson plan is crumpled and you're left feeling not confident. And then your teens, being old enough, they sense that discomfort. So the fix isn't having to be perfect. It's not having to have endless repertoire at your fingertips. The fix is what I call having a reliable teen toolkit. So if you walk in with this sense of having resources that you can purposely pivot to in your back pocket, that can really be a game changer for keeping your lessons in a place where you feel as though you still have a sense of direction and control. And that helps your teens in the process. So in that toolkit, that can be it can be very simple. It can be like a 2-minute reset game. It can be what I call a feelings first piece, something lyrical, moody, cinematic. It can be an easy duet that you know your teen can sight read and you can quickly play it together. It could even be teaching them a real world skill like improvising in the key of C, something like that. So to get started in building that teen toolkit, if you don't already have one, just choose one idea from this list. Don't overcomplicate it. Consistency matters more than variety at first. And just commit to using it with every one of your teens for a month and just kind of observe what it does. See if it shifts their motivation, see if it shifts their interest. Having that there for when they come in and they derail your lesson plans, it keeps your confidence, it keeps their progress, and it can really help. That one small move, having something ready that will land in the moments that you need it, can really make you feel more steady, and then they'll feel that steadiness as well. So you might ask, well, how do I know what's going to land? For me, 2 toolkit staples really fix that. And one is emotional match music. Your teens are living in big feelings, even if they're very closed off and they don't seem like they are. Inside they are. So bringing in a piece that lets them express themselves and that is leveled appropriately is key. You'll walk in knowing it will click and they'll feel successful. So it really helps to seek out music that's created for their specific level. We think we've all seen how poorly a lesson can go when we attempt to teach a pop adaptation sheet music that's way too hard or doesn't sound at all like the original. Your teen leaves really not able to practice something properly for the week, and we leave feeling like, oh, that did not go the way I wanted it to. So having pieces that you know are the right level and that will have that sort of emotional key is important. And the second key aspect of things that you can put in your toolkit are applicable activities that encourage creativity. For some teens, this can be uncomfortable at first. They feel like they're sharing a lot of themselves. But this can be really as simple as knowing in your toolkit to give them ownership over parts of the piece they're playing. So you can say things like, how would you shape that phrase? Or do you agree with that dynamic marking there? Would you want to change it? We could probably change the style of this piece. What are some ways you can do that? So it's really simple, but just having these little strategies in that toolkit can really help. The other part of this and having confidence is being able to measure progress without pressure. One of the biggest reasons we lose confidence teaching our teens is because progress can feel unpredictable. If they stall, we start second guessing ourselves. If they're doing really well, we have this tendency to kind of push and we get excited, like they're engaged, let's go, let's go. But the fix isn't actually to expect these giant leaps or to feel defeated when progress isn't happening as we hoped. The fix is to kind of redefine what progress looks like for each of your individual teens. Teens thrive when challenges feel achievable but meaningful. That is key. So a new technical skill, an expressive breakthrough, a performance-ready piece, those may seem like small little bits of progress to us, but to them, they can be really big confidence boosts. So really making a point of acknowledging those small wins as progress is really important. And just remembering that consistency beats intensity. When you focus on small, steady wins week after week, you don't feel like you're scrambling for miracle repertoire or these dramatic breakthroughs. Your teen feels as though they are achieving and progressing week after week. And that clarity will build your own confidence, which then makes your students feel secure. So overall, if you're nodding your head like, yes, but how do I build that toolkit? That's where people like me and like Tim come in. You can message us about resources for our teens. You can ask about repertoire that might, connect. And a lot of the repertoire that we put out there has opportunities for self-expression and connects emotionally. So there are a lot of tools out there to help teachers who want to start building that sort of toolkit. So I mentioned to Tim that I do have a handout that I can stick in the chat at the end. These are just an example of some things. If you're a visual person like me, these are tangible things you can have in your teen toolkit. This one here, The Haunting, is a piece that really can kind of connect emotionally with students. It's also seasonal for Halloween. The second one is improv, so giving them those opportunities for creativity in a guided way. The next one is a way that you can measure progress in a way that feels tangible with those small weekly wins. And then the other one is composing, which again is an opportunity for some self-expression and creativity. So the first tip that we'll go over covers giving students some choice, but still having a say in the process. When lessons feel like theirs, their motivation can really soar. And I know you've heard this before. We are all told that teens need repertoire they can connect with. They should be able to bring in pieces that they want to play. Everybody says that. Everybody knows that. For some, that's like second nature. You're a teacher and you're like, let's go. And others, it just causes you to go into panic mode. You think, how do I have progress if my lessons are just consistently one-off pieces that they're bringing in? And those are totally valid concerns. We have to give choice without losing direction. So let's take a little look at how to make that work.
This is such a great point to bring up, Andrea, because it's walking that fine line. We talk about it a lot. It's such a challenge.
It is. It is. The key takeaway I think that teachers can take from this is that giving choice does not mean giving up control. We are still the guide. We set the boundaries and we make sure that the choices that we offer all serve our bigger musical goals. But within those boundaries, we can offer a little freedom that actually goes a long way to helping keep our teens have a sense of buy-in. So when our teens feel like they've had a hand in shaping the lesson, their motivation can really take off. They practice more, they engage more deeply, and they tend to stick with piano longer because it feels connected to who they are as a person. As teachers, we often have this fear, like, well, what if I give too much choice? We worry that our lessons will lose direction or that students won't get the skills that they actually need. But really, the opposite fear should actually be just as real. Like, what if we don't give enough choice? That's when teens check out. They either rebel against too much structure or they just get bored and drift away if it feels like they're just floating aimlessly through piano lessons. So as Tim said, the key is balance. It's about guided freedom. We frame our choices in a way that still keeps the lesson on track, but also gives our students a voice. And that balance is what can keep engagement really high without sacrificing progress. So the key is to really keep those choices simple and intentional. Instead of this overwhelming menu, we can just offer 2 or 3 pieces that all teach the same skill. So no matter which one they pick, the pedagogy stays solid, our goals stay there. You can let them do things like choose how they will practice that week. Maybe they want to record themselves and post it on their socials, or maybe they want to improvise around a phrase that really needs a lot of repetition. Or maybe they want to perform for someone at home or at school. We all want that teen that sits at the piano at lunch at their school and just plays for everybody because we know how important that can be. And if they bring in a pop song, great, use elements of it, but you don't have to let it take over your entire lesson. And we'll dig a little bit more into that later. And the last way to offer choice is one that's really near and dear to me, and that is thinking about real world skills that fit your students. So giving them choice in this arena. Maybe they want to be able to play hymns, or maybe they want to jam with a guitar friend, or maybe they want to accompany a sibling who also sings. When you weave skills that matter in, lessons can feel really relevant. And so giving them that choice can help their piano investment feel worth it to them. So it helps to think of ourselves as like a curator instead of a dictator. Our job isn't to control every move in the lesson, but to like carefully frame the options so that no matter which path your student chooses, they're still moving forward. So that means that every choice we offer is intentional, whether it is repertoire, practice strategies, creative projects. Each one has that growth that you want baked into what you've selected. I call this like my yes and mindset. So for example, yes, we can play that song you love. And here's the skill that you need to make that work. And then you can delve into your teaching toolkit to teach that skill in the way that you choose to. And that way progress still happens. Your teen has had some say in the process, but then they see the why behind your teaching. And that can really keep the door open in your studio. It shows respect for their input and still ensures that lessons move in the direction that they need to go. So the takeaway from this is really just giving structured choice. Everyone wins when you do that. Your students stay engaged because they feel invested. We stay confident because the choices are designed to keep that progress on track. We do not have to abandon all of our teaching structure to like dive headfirst into Coldplay one-offs for a whole year. I think most of us have tried that. It doesn't work. They will decide they hate that song 3 weeks from now, and all of that work you put in, they'll never play it again. So it's not sustainable. Their musical taste changed too rapidly. And then they start to sense that their progress is kind of scattershot. And then that's when they start to back away from lessons. So we're really looking for balance. We need to respect their independence. We need to respect our teaching goals. And that can create lessons that are sustainable and rewarding for both of you, which makes me move into teaching pop songs. Oops, I missed a slide here.
RSL Awards leads the way in creative education. We make qualifications and resources for everything from graded music and performing arts exams to practical vocational qualifications in sound engineering, theatre, and games design. So, if you want to be a musician, actor, lighting designer, dancer, or video game creator, we can help. Our success stories include million-selling artists like Ed Sheeran and the sound engineers who record him at studios like Abbey Road. Over 1 million people have an RSL certificate on their wall. So if you want to join the next generation of creatives, visit rslawards.com to find out more.
So your teens today, they live in a world, it just is fact, of YouTube tutorials and TikTok tutorials, and they can pull up a video and learn a song in minutes. And it's easy to want to ignore that because it feels a little threatening for us as piano teachers to have this at their fingertips all the time. But to ignore that, we risk losing relevance with them. This is how they engage with music, and so we need to acknowledge that. But if instead we embrace those tutorials as teaching opportunities, everything can shift. We gain their trust. They feel like they can come in and share those parts of their world with us. But we get to show them the skills and context that YouTube can't. And that's how piano lessons can stay connected to their world and how we can stay in our role as the guide who makes it make sense. So when they bring in a YouTube tutorial, you may just panic and feel like you have to follow it in every exact same detail. But your job isn't to know every detail. It's to spot the building blocks that you already teach every day. So in that tutorial, there will be chords, rhythms, patterns. Our job isn't to judge the tutorial or shut it down. It's to look beyond what's there on their screen. So use these requests as a doorway into teaching skills. So, we may look at it and think, oh, this isn't accurate, or, oh, the fingering they're using is terrible, or does this even make sense? But the real value isn't in whether the tutorial is good or bad. The value is in the skills hiding underneath the song. So when you think about it, every pop tutorial, no matter how rough, usually has some clear building blocks. It will have usually a repeating left-hand pattern, a handful of chords, a catchy rhythm. And in reality, those are the same kind of building blocks we're trying to teach in lessons. So instead of getting hung up on the actual tutorial and resisting the urge to teach it bit by bit with them or watch them struggle through it on their own, instead you can kind of shift focus to the bigger picture and say oh, that's a really interesting rhythm they're using. Let's stop for a second, figure it out, and we'll notate it. It becomes a rhythm lesson. Or, oh, this song uses just 4 chords. Let's figure them out. And once you learn those, you can play dozens of other songs. And in this way, the tutorial becomes a springboard, not the destination. Your teens still feel validated, and then you stay in control by steering them towards those transferable skills. So I guess the real question becomes not, can we learn this tutorial, but what can that tutorial teach us? And then seen that way, every one of those that come in is a chance to build lasting musicianship. So as just kind of an example scenario, say your student comes in really excited about a TikTok tutorial for that Justin Bieber song, Daisies, that's really popular right now. So say the tutorial shows a really simplified version, just right-hand melody, a few blocked left-hand chords. So instead of putting that on your piano and teaching it note for note, you can kind of zoom out and say okay, let's figure out what those chords are. So together you can identify the chord progression, the 1, 6, 4, 5. And then you say, this is one of the most popular progressions in pop music. Once you know it, you'll recognize it in hundreds of other songs. Let's put this into your binder. We'll write it out. And then you can teach a student to play the progression as blocked chords. And then you can turn it into a broken chord pattern of maybe a left-hand pattern they've been learning in another part of their lesson. You can add rhythm options based on rhythms that you've been learning. You can make it their own by keeping it straight, or you can teach them about syncopation to make it sound more like the recording. You can show them how to then take this and transpose it into a key that maybe they can sing along with it better. So now this TikTok has not just become a one-off. It's like a doorway into chord theory, left-hand patterns, rhythm variation, transposition, all of these things that we're hoping our students gain as musicians. So yes, we have had this issue as I taught for many, many years, even before TikTok and YouTube. They would come in saying, I found this piece of music on Sheet Music Plus. Can we play it? And finding those transferable skills is really key, even in those scenarios. So that's why we created our Wonder Keys Pop Studies books. These are structured resources that you can kind of tuck in your teen toolkit so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel or scramble for ideas on the spot, because these books take all of those transferable skills and teach them in a progressive, intentional way. So they cover playing in all the major and minor keys around the circle of fifths, so your students know how to do that. teaches chording, lead sheets, improv scales, all of those building blocks that the tutorials introduce. So then those skills transfer back to the TikTok. So you can say, okay, yeah, great. This song's in the key of A minor. We just completed that unit in your pop studies book. Let's review the A minor scale and the chords in that key, so you're comfortable playing in that. And then we'll apply it to following, the structure of the tutorial. That way, you know that you're following a sense of structure and progress, and you have some flexibility in how you then transfer that to the pop song. So you don't need to be a pop guru. I promise you don't need to memorize every single top 40 song. You just need to know what is behind the songs that they're bringing in and how to then transfer
Please
that.
don't do that.
Please don't.
There's no point. There is no point.
No, it will change. And like I said before, because their one-off songs will change really quickly in terms of what they're motivated to keep playing. Teaching them these transferable skills then makes them a really confident musician who can tackle the next big thing that comes on the radio with confidence. And that's really what we're trying to do. And that's really what will make music part of their lives long term, is that ability to take skills and transfer them to things that bring them joy. The next part is about teenage identity and what that means, and really just understanding that for teenagers, music isn't just background noise. It's how they express themselves. It's how they process emotions. It's how they connect with their peers. You see them plugged into their headphones all the time. I think I have to turn my headphones off. Teenagers, they really have music in their ears all the time. And so when they walk into your studio, they're not just hoping to learn notes. They're hoping to, see themselves in the music. So choosing pieces that tell stories or spark emotions or reflect on their world can instantly make their lessons feel more personable. So this next section is all about exploring how music shapes teenage identity and how we can use that to keep them motivated. So as we talked about earlier, just briefly, teens are in the middle of figuring out who they are and how they want to be seen. And music can be one of the most powerful mirrors for that process. So when a student connects to a piece, it's about hearing themselves in the music and realizing, this is me. This says something about who I am. So my first tip under this topic is to go beyond the technical side as much as you can. Encourage them to connect emotionally by saying things like, what story do you think this piece tells? Or what does this piece say about you? And just encouraging them to see how music can how they can turn into a personal statement, and suddenly their practice has a deeper purpose. Or if that's too personal for your particular teen, you could say, if this piece was in a movie, what scene would it play under? And teens can often find that to be less personal, but still key into that storytelling. And this way, lessons can stop feeling like homework and start feeling like self-expression. So if you're looking for powerful things that we can help our teenagers to really connect to, I've always found that when teenagers find a piece that feels like could be the soundtrack to their own story and their own individual personality, their engagement can really skyrocket. So this is why we've created resources like we do in Wonder Keys. We have fairy tale books that reimagine well-known tales and have these deep sort of moody quotes and images. We have the sessions books that take well-known classical themes and twist them with some pop sounds. We have cinematic books like The Guardians that have really strong imagery. And so therefore, the pieces that you're giving them aren't just notes on a page. We've kind of done the heavy lifting in terms of providing the imagery or the backstory for you. You can absolutely do this with other pieces of music too. We have a blog post on our site called Sonia and the Sonatina. And it's about how you can turn a sonatina into a cinematic sort of masterpiece as well. But for some teachers, it's so much easier to just grab a resource that has this at the backbone of it, in terms of connecting emotionally for teens. The most important takeaway when it comes to teen identity is to really remember that we can have a really profound influence on shaping their musical identity. And when we do that, we really build relationships. We talked about how our teens are growing up in a world that looks really very different from the one we knew. Technology is shaping how they spend their time and how they interact. And now their attention spans are trained to kind of reset every few moments, and tasks that require deep, dedicated thought are becoming kind of rare. And yet piano lessons ask for the opposite. They ask for focus and grit and long-term progress. And at first glance, that can feel like a real mismatch. But this is where piano lessons can shine, because we are giving teens that one-on-one relationship building. And this can really help them shape their identity to include music in it. That relationship becomes sort of like this bridge between their fast-paced instant gratification world and then the slower, deeper work of music. when you think of it, our teens rarely have one-on-one time with an adult. Their school classes are big and crowded. They often engage in team sports, group dance. Their parents are busy with other siblings and home. But then your piano students come and they have your undivided attention every single week. And that's rare and it's valuable. And that's how we can compete with technology. And that's something that is really difficult to replace. So focusing on relationship building in your lessons is really key. And that can really help your students to form this sense of identity, like, I am a piano player. This is who I am. And people don't often walk away from things that they really identify with and that they feel is a part of them. So just knowing that your influence can have a huge effect on how they see themselves.
Just on that, Andrea, can I just say that is just I'm so glad you brought up this identity thing, because if we can just get them over that hump around ages 12 to 14, where they go from I'm having piano lessons to I'm a piano player or a music player.
Yes.
We kind of, you're halfway, you're almost home at home base by then, right?
Absolutely.
If they can just say that and feel that. And that's why I'm so in agreement with you in regard to this pop music and things, because if they can play something that their friends recognize and they like, then all their friends go, oh my God, that is so good, Andrea. You're the coolest piano. You're a piano. What, how do you do that? And then they build that identity themselves. And it's just so cool.
That's what I said, we all want to have that teen piano student who sits on the piano at school and plays something, and that group of teenagers comes, stands around. That, to me, if you could package that in a bottle, everyone would buy it, because it is, they see themselves as, I am, the piano player in the school. I am the one that the kids can shout out requests to, and I can play it. And that's why those transferable skills are so important. It's not that they can sit down and play that Coldplay song. It's that their buddy can say, like, hey, do you know this song? And they know it, because they're like, yeah, it's just these 4 chords and I can use this left hand pattern. And so if we really make use of those pop song moments and those tutorials as bare building material for getting our students to that point where they can do that, that is really, those students, they are the ones that stay with piano. They're the ones that get that feedback from their peers. And it's really fun to be that person that can sit down at your school piano and just jam. And we all hope our students will find, moments of collaboration with other musicians in their school. And that's all really very powerful. So yes, identity is key, and building that relationship with your teens so that you are helping them to find that sense of identity is key as well. It seems like a heavy responsibility, and it is. It's a lot, like it is. But I think that's what we as piano teachers, like, we really thrive on that. That's why we're in this, because we know that we have this opportunity. We are people who want to help build other people. And I think that's really special. When we're talking about relationship building, one of the important parts of that, even with our teens, I think we're all masters of this with our younger students. We know that they need changes of focus and they need fun. But that can sometimes accidentally fall apart when we start teaching teenagers. So I just wanted to talk about a few things about keeping lessons light and fun with your teens. If their lessons start to feel heavy or predictable, where it's the same every single week, your teens will check out. They'll still show up physically, hopefully, but mentally they just won't be as engaged. So the secret weapon is surprise, like a dose of the unexpected, whether it's like a quick game or a new way to practice or a piece they didn't see coming. That can keep your teens curious, and curiosity is what will bring them back, eager to see, what happens next. So it doesn't take a huge overhaul, but just little moments of novelty worn into your teaching can really transform lessons from predictable to exciting. And these are things that can live in that teen toolkit that I've been talking about as well. So breaking the pattern. So if your lessons look the same every week, if you do bench book, repeat every single week, your teens will kind of tune out. So you can switch it up, just switch up the lesson format. Something as simple as that can make a difference. Swap in a rhythm activity right in the beginning that gets them moving, or use a quick game to reinforce a skill that they're working on. It only takes like a couple of minutes to reset their focus, or you can like throw in a creative challenge like, hey, let's take this phrase and let's change the left hand and see what might happen. These little changes, like, they don't derail progress like we might worry about. They actually amplify it. So you're keeping them alert and engaged and excited to see what comes next. The other part of it is balancing serious with silly. They absolutely need structure, like we talked about, but if it's all seriousness, that hard work won't stick. So we need a balance where you mix moments of humor and play. I really believe that we should not assume that our teens are too old for games. They may roll their eyes. They may look at you like, seriously. But if if you frame it like, oh, I got this new game for my younger students, would you try it with me? Or, hey, one of their friends that you also teach loved this game last week. Do you want to try it? It opens the door for them to feel comfortable, like sitting down. And games, to me, are one of the best relationship builders in a lesson. If you can sit across from your student and jokingly compete with them or react to them winning, or, have that sort of kibitzing that goes back and forth, that builds relationships so quickly. They get to see who you are as a person. All of a sudden, you're sitting in front of them instead of beside them. You're interacting with them. You can make silly mistakes that they can catch you on. It's instant relationship building. So just remembering that your teens need focus breaks too. You don't always have to look for games that look teen friendly. They will play unicorn games and snowman games. They will, especially if you say like, hey, I thought maybe one day you might want to come into lessons with, Johnny, who's younger, and maybe like play some games with him. Do you want to learn how to play this game so that you can do that later? Really just giving them a reason to be okay with engaging with a game. And once you get over that threshold and you've done it with them a few times, you can just pull out the game and they know it's coming and they feel safe with you to let their guard down and just have a really good time. So again, in that handout, I've just put in like a few free fun ones that we have that are designed to have a bit more of a teen lean. You can grab some seasonal resources that kind of teach the same skill, but in an unexpected way. There's some game boards there, flashcards, just some fun ways of mixing it up in lessons.
Chopin Shuffle. I love your graphics. They're so cool.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, just in summary, like fun isn't fluff. Think of it as fuel for retention. You can frame it that way with parents who maybe wonder like, why are you playing a game? How come I don't hear music through the doorway? We always worry that is the perception that if we don't have fingers on the keys constantly, that progress isn't happening. That's actually the opposite. So just having a studio where, fun is just part of the lesson experience can be really powerful in terms of progress and joy when those work hand in hand in your studio. So the final one is practice. Everybody always wants to talk about practice because that's our pain point. And with teens, I actually start to change the language I use from practice to creation. So you can say things like, when you're creating at home this week, when you're experimenting at home this week, when you are taking this and making it your own at home this week. I hate the fact that piano practice lives on chore charts. That is one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate that it becomes like have you done any piano practice? Check it off your chore chart. I really think we are hoping to cultivate musicians who will sit down at the piano because they want to be there and because it's fun and joyful and you are putting a piece of yourself into that part of your day. And so if we start speaking to our teens less about practice where it feels like homework and pointless and has no relevance to more, creating, that can be a really powerful thing. So to do that might sound difficult, but it's actually not. If we just shift the lens and instead of framing practice as like repetition endlessly, we can frame it as gathering raw material. So every scale, every chord pattern, every rhythm is fuel for creating something new. So that could be an improv or a mashup of a piece or their own composition. Creation can really give their practice like a why, and it gives them a tool for making something that's theirs. And then practice stops being a grind. It starts feeling like preparation for something exciting that they're really invested in. When you say like, I know you really want to play this piece. When you're creating at home this week, if you can get this part really, really down, or if you can master this scale, it's going to slot back into your piece and make this part so much easier, rather than sit down and play this scale 6 times and check it off each time you do so. It's just a different way of framing it in their mind. And it doesn't take long for them to start thinking of their time at the piano less as, set the oven timer for 30 minutes. I'm dating myself, set your iPhone timer for 30 minutes, and more, I am just going to sit here and just enjoy being in this process because I really want the outcome. Creativity doesn't always have to be a big formal project. I know teachers will often panic and think like, oh, I don't know how to compose with my students, or I need a book to show me how to do that. And it's not really that big. You can start with small creative sparks. Like you can help them add their own ending to a piece that they're already working on. I love it when teachers upload recordings of my music and the student has changed parts of it. They always seem to apologize. They'll say like, sorry, I know it's not exactly the same. And I'm like, no, that's wonderful. It's creation. And that means that they have practiced on their own to come up with things that they like and that they want to change. And that's fantastic. You can improvise on a chord pattern. Say they brought a tutorial and you've discovered this chord pattern. At home, say, hey, take those chords and come up with something really cool that sounds neat over top of it. They can rearrange melodies in a new style. All of this has connections to theory that then you can then talk about. So when students use these practice skills to build or adapt or compose, the practice stops being a grind and it starts being self-expression. And that can be really, really powerful. So you can guide them in connecting like how that practice can become creative. If you are a more hands-on person, you can look for structured resources that make that happen. This little piece I have here, this is a scale study, but it shows them how learning a scale can then transfer into putting it into the context of a piece. And anything that Trevor and I create, we really try to bring relevance to technical work. Like, why am I bothering? This is why. So that they know that their time that they're investing in this is important to them and that they feel really keyed into that. So yes, the takeaway from that, practice fuels creation and creation fuels motivation. So when your students see practice as a doorway to this self-expression, they really stay engaged and they grow faster. And, even if you have a very busy teen who is working a part-time job and taking AP classes and tutoring younger children, these moments that they can carve away from their phone at the piano can really be powerful, and it can still create this sense of progress and it can still keep them connected to the piano. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying, like Tim said, keep them connected through those challenging, bumpy years so that this skill that they have invested so much time in as a young person through elementary school is something that they don't just give up on a whim or in a poof of frustration. That is something that is long lasting for them. And, we know as lifelong musicians what a gift that is to have that. Teens are short-sighted and they don't think long-term. And so giving up piano to them in that moment may feel like not such a big deal. But to us, we sit there and we're like, no, you're so close. And so anything we can do to keep them so that they stay engaged, so that things feel relevant to them is really just important. So these aspects of teaching teens are at the heart of everything we do. If this makes sense what I'm saying and you're excited about it, but you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, you can think of the resources that we put out there as kind of your safety net. You don't have to piece it all together on your own. We have all kinds of resources that can help you start to build this teen toolkit that can keep progress happening and help you guide your teens with confidence so that your lessons feel purposeful and personal and engaging every week. That's what we're here for.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Andrea today and you've got those new tips and strategies for engaging your teens. If you're like me, you probably took quite a few notes. And just as an aside, if you would like to see Andrea's PowerPoint presentation, because she actually had slides as she was presenting this, then just make sure you jump into the Top Music Pro Academy if you're a member. If you're not a member, of course, you can come and join us at any time. We'd love to have you with us. Some of the ideas that I really liked was that use of yes and, particularly when a teenager comes in and wants to learn something from YouTube or show you a YouTube tutorial. It's like, yes, I'd love to work on that with you. And what we're going to do is make sure that you are able to play this even better by doing this activity. So we're not handing over the reins completely, but we are giving them that choice that is so important for teenagers. I like to quote, be the curator, not the dictator. I think when we start teaching younger students, we are the dictator, and that's okay. It's a very teacher-led curriculum at the start. But as they grow up, it needs to become more of a shared curriculum. And particularly by teenage and adulthood, we are much more of a curator of activities and music than we are a dictator, that's for sure. I also liked her mention of using pop music and YouTube tutorials to spot the building blocks and dive into those. That's the place that we can be most helpful. She talked about using them as springboards even to this deeper understanding of the construction of music, which is something that obviously is very close to my heart if you've been listening to my podcast for any length of time. I think often teachers get hung up when they aren't explicitly teaching reading. So when students are learning songs off YouTube tutorials and things like that, we kind of ask ourselves, well, what's the point? What's my job? What do I do? I've lost my ability to help here. I think this was a great example of how much more valuable we are to students than we actually think. We're not just a teacher of reading, we're a teacher of music, and music is a huge, varied and deep topic. I also like to comment about keeping things unexpected and adding novel activities to boost curiosity. This is one part of integrated music teaching that I've been talking about for some time. The research backs this up. We want to keep things novel because that's the thing that students remember. It's the thing that helps them learn the most as well. And look, I think one of the biggest takeaways of this whole thing was her mention a number of times of having a teaching toolkit of creative ideas that you can throw into lessons when you need them. And this is something I'm really passionate about helping teachers build. And one of the best tools in your toolkit for teenagers is my 4-chord composing framework. Now, if you listened to last week's episode 431, you got a chance to listen to the framework, how it works, and you found out it was my favorite all-time activity that I've ever created and shared with teachers. So this is a big one for me. And I also shared last week the first module in the course, so you could have a listen to me teaching my student and how it all worked. So if you've been thinking while you're listening to this episode, well, Andrea, that's great, but what tools should I have in my toolkit? Where do I get them? Well, this is basically my top recommendation. This is like the hammer or the tape measure that a carpenter would use every single day, pretty much. This is the activity, the tool that you want in your toolkit that is going to bring so many ideas together for students. It's going to be fun. It's going to be novel, creative. It's going to build curiosity. I can't recommend it anymore. The great thing is, of course, as you heard last week, we are giving you $100 off this course. If you'd like to buy it as just a one-off course access, so no membership involved, just head to topmusic.co/4cc and use the coupon code CHORDS100 because that's going to give you $100 off that course. If you'd like to grab it, then make sure you do it this month. That's September 2025. That's when that offer is open. I hope you go and grab that and pop that in your toolkit. Now, make sure you also go and download our latest magazine for this month. It's over at topmusic.co/magazine. The Top Music magazine we create every single month for teachers. It's completely free. And this month's theme, as you probably know, because we've been talking about it this month on the podcast as well, it's about pop, jazz, and contemporary styles. And that's why this is so relevant to our teenagers, of course. So do head over and grab that. Make sure you subscribe so that you get all the editions into your inbox each and every month. Well, that's it for the episode this week. Thanks so much for joining me. I do hope you got some notes down and some ideas, and you're most importantly going to go and try them with some students this week, preferably, before you forget anyway. Go and give it a shot, and I hope it's valuable for you. Next week on the podcast, we get to hang out with Anna Marie, one of our Top Music Pro team members here, who has just invested in a brand new bricks and mortar location. For the first time after decades of teaching, she's dived in the deep end and got a bricks and mortar location. And we're going to be talking all about how she did it, why she did it, and pitfalls and exciting things, all the good and bad. That's what we're going to be unpacking in next week's episode. I can't wait to share that with you then. Until next time, this is the Topcast, and I'm Tim Topham. Thanks so much for your time, and I'll speak to you soon.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.